The people making Monaco take the mic. I'm Nancy Heslin, and welcome to Monaco Info, the podcast. Our guest today is no stranger to five-star experiences. Born in Britain but raised and educated in Monaco, she has spent 15 years immersed in hotel luxury, from the Savoy in London to the Royal Monceau in Paris. She returned to the Principality with her service industry know-how and now runs the Columbus Hotel Monte Carlo, where her talent earned her the title of Manager of the Year. Welcome Monaco's first female general manager in the hotel industry, Victoria Stevenson. Hi, Victoria. Welcome to the Monaco Info podcast in English.
Hi, Nancy. Thank you very much for having me.
I thought that maybe I should put chocolates on your chair or do something like to welcome you, like you might welcome a guest at the hotel. So, sorry, I just gave you a cup of water.
That will do. Don't worry. I've got enough chocolates going around right now.
I was really shocked when I was reading your bio because I didn't realize that you were born in Britain and that you actually came to Monaco and had your education here. And maybe because you were born in Britain and I was born in Canada is the reason that we both showed up exactly 10 minutes in advance today to meet each other. Because I find sometimes with other nationalities, they're not always on time.
I agree. I think a lot of people are not on time today, though, in general. I think we all seem to be running after time. But it's a value that was given to me at a very young age, and I do try and respect it still today. And it's a value I try and give to my children also.
But do people think you're French? I mean, I hear you speak French in your videos, and I thought, she can't be British.
I think it depends on the day. Some days I sound more English and others more French. My sisters will say I'm French today, but other people say I'm very English, straight to the point, no faffing about.
But what do your kids speak at home, French or English?
Both.
And do you find running a big company like the hotel, is it difficult because I'm presuming that the language is French, or is it in English primarily?
It's majority French just because of the teams, but I do have team members who want to work on their English and ask me to speak in English. And ever since we've become a Hilton property, there's a lot of exchanges, obviously, in English. But until 2 years ago, we were actually run by an English company, so a lot of my work was in English.
And do you have a lot of family here still? I mean, you grew up here.
I grew up here. My parents are still here, and one of my sisters is here, actually. And I still have two which come back from time to time. It's still home for all of us today.
Is going back to the UK, do you consider yourself to be British, or are you really somebody that's in love with Monaco?
No, I'm 100% British. That
really?
Will never go away.
What does that mean to be 100% British? Especially coming from a Canadian, I don't really know what that means.
I just feel English inside of me. I can't really explain it, even though I haven't lived there very long over the years. But there's something about having been born there, having English parents, and the values they've given me. I feel more English than I do French.
What does it mean, though, to have British values?
I think the monarchy speaks a lot to us in England, and it's something, even if I've been out of the country, I still follow to see what's going on. I think the mentality in the English culture is very different to the French culture, a lot more positive. So I think that's what it means being English to me. You
were just telling me that you would love to, at some point, go to Canada. And you actually have spent quite a bit of time in Canada. How did that happen?
My dad worked in Canada for numerous years, and we would go and visit him during our summer holidays to see our father, who worked abroad. And we would spend the 2 months in Canada, moving about, discovering Canada. And then after he left Canada, we kept on going for holidays, skiing in Whistler. And that's how it's just come about, and that's something I'm now giving to my children too, because I'm so fond of the country, of the people, the lifestyle. It's a special place for me and my family.
Did you have a travel bug
at
a young age? Like, were you that kid that was like, I want to see the world?
Yes, but I think that was given to us by our parents, and the fact we'd travel a lot to see our dad, to be able to see him when he was abroad. So we did Pakistan, Canada, Asia, many places. But there's still many more to see.
Now, how many sisters do you have?
I have 3 sisters.
Do you think that they had the same travel bug?
Absolutely.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
So it was something that you all shared. And do they continue to travel?
No, none of us have sort of made a life out of traveling around the world. I mean, 2 of them are in London today and 2 of us are here. But we do make a point out of traveling frequently throughout the year to different destinations.
Is that something that you thought would be a good career choice to tie travel in with something you were interested in?
I think it helped me in my career choice to go into hospitality. I always knew I would be in an industry where I would take care of others. For me, that was always something that was very
Really?
important. Always.
Where does that come from?
I don't know. From a very young age, I would help around the house. When we'd have guests over, I would be clearing the table, making sure everybody was happy and I'd have food on their plates. And my parents said, well, you should go and do that one day. And I didn't know if that was the case. I was 12 at the age. But yes, I've always known that finding or wowing others was something that was going to make me tick on a day-to-day.
Wowing others?
Yeah.
That's an extraordinary way to say that. And do you continue to do that?
Oh, it's part of my job now. It's how do we impress our guests when they stay with us? How do we find in the conversation we have that small element which is going to allow us to bring something into their experience throughout their stay with us?
Okay, so let me ask you this. If that's what your job is, to wow other people, how does somebody then, like yourself, go on vacation? Can you enjoy being in a hotel? Can you enjoy being in the hotel restaurant? Or does your keen eye for the wow factor, is it just always on?
It's always on.
Really?
Yeah.
So can you enjoy a holiday?
I can, if the wow factor's there.
Because that's you've been in the industry a long time.
I have, but I think what's amazing about our industry, it's constantly evolving, and people are looking for that new experience, that new element we can bring to our guests. And I think that's what it is today, traveling, and it's how to create that experience that the guest has never had elsewhere, or how to, as I said, find the element in a conversation with them, which is going to make us make their experience that much better.
You didn't want to be a nurse? You could take care of other people by being a nurse?
No, that one never came to me. I don't know why.
Do you have a lot of patience?
I do.
Okay.
Well, I did. I think with age, it's changing slightly.
Because for that type of job, you must have grown up and been that type of person that just naturally had a lot of patience in your family.
I think I did, and I think I still do. And it's something, yes, which is important in our industry.
As a kid, what do you remember as your first vacation? Your first, it could be family vacation or a trip you took with the school.
Probably a school trip where we went to, I think it was near Biarritz. And I think the only
in France.
In France. And I think the main reason I remember is because I broke my wrist.
Oh.
Doing a circus act, which I clearly failed. I fell off the ball and hit my head and broke my wrist. But that's probably one of the first ones I remember.
Okay, that wasn't really the reason I was saying. What do you remember about a trip?
Well, I think that one, just being in a group of people at that age, being away from my family and interacting with others, which came quite easily to me. Having three sisters, we all bunked together in the same rooms, or would rotate, so we learned to live in a community. So that came naturally to me, obviously, when I traveled with my classmates when I went to university. That was very easy for me, and I think it also now helps in my industry to be able to interact with our guests.
Where do you fall into your siblings? If there's four of you, are you the oldest, the youngest?
I'm in the middle, and I'm a twin.
Oh, you have a twin?
I have a twin.
What is that like? Do you think about each other all the time?
No, we're not.
Are you connected? You'll say, oh, I was just thinking of you. And she says, me too?
Not at all. We're not identical twins. And whatever I like, she doesn't like. And whatever she likes, I don't like.
Really?
We're complete opposites. It's quite funny.
Who was born first?
I was.
And do you let her remember that? You tell her that all the time?
No.
Okay. But is there some type of connection?
No, not so much today. Not more than with my other sisters.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. So in your place in the family, you sound like you have a very supportive group of people that have given you confidence to go off and see the world.
I have very supportive parents and very supportive sisters. I mean, we talk regularly. I could even say they're my best friends.
Because growing up in Monaco, I can't imagine is always an easy experience.
It's not. You grow up in a bubble, and I think where my parents did well by us is they kept us very grounded. We were able to travel, which was a luxury and still is a luxury. But on a day-to-day sort of going to school where you do have children who are different sort of levels in society, I think they managed to keep us very grounded and allowed us all to leave Monaco without any hesitation when we had the opportunity at 18. But me being a mum today, I see the difficulty of it, and I think society is even more different than it was back then with telephones and
social media.
Exactly.
But did you feel growing up here, and I think a lot of people would like to know that, when you are educated here from a young age, you came here what age?
I was 4.
What is your world like? Are you aware it's a small world at some point? You see the same people in your classes, you grow up together, you're all close, there's drama.
I don't think you realize when you're young. I think maybe when you reach your teens, you then start to realize that there's a real gap. I mean, I would go to school with people who on their 18th birthday were gifted boats or amazing cars.
What?
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's a memory I have. And I remember I said I would like to go somewhere which is not so much a bubble, where people a little bit, how I felt at the time, more down to earth.
Now, did your friends from high school, let's say, did they stay here, and did they find work here that, become a fonctionnaire or find whatever they wanted to do, or did they just leave?
I think there's a mix. I think majority left but have come back, like I came back, and some did stay.
And where did you go to school then?
I went to Switzerland. So I left a bubble for another bubble, if I'm very honest with you.
Your words?
I didn't realize at the time, very naively.
So was it an eye-opener? Because it was still small, but it's a whole different group of people when you've grown up in a tight community and a network.
It was possibly more international. I say it was a bubble. I went to Glion Institute of Higher Education in Montreux, which is possibly even smaller than Monaco as a place. And we were on a hill, so you lived on a hill most of your days. But we had people from Indonesia who didn't necessarily have the same means, who were on sponsorships, which grounded it a bit more. And had more restrictions. They couldn't travel like we could travel. I mean, they got their visa to go to Switzerland. So when we came to internships, they had to stay in Switzerland, where we could go nearly anywhere in the world. So it does allow you to realize the luck you have in that situation.
Why did you pick it was the Glion Institute?
Glion, yeah.
Why did you choose that? Because there's other equivalent institutions. Like, what were you hoping that was going to give you in life?
There are many institutions and some absolutely amazing ones. The reason I chose that one was actually for the size. Obviously, for the quality of the education. It was very well renowned in the hospitality industry, so I was very lucky my parents were able to send me there. But when it came to being accepted in several, it was the size of it which pushed me to that one, because having come from Monaco, being a small environment, I wasn't necessarily ready to go into a very, very big university.
Really? Mm-hmm. That surprises me, because you have so much confidence and energy. I would think you'd fit in kind of anywhere.
Yeah, maybe at 18 I didn't have the same confidence.
18's young, though, right? To go to university.
It was a long time ago.
Don't you think when you're 18 years old, we were talking about this recently, a group of us, that when you're 18 years old now, as we're older in our 40s, 50s, and we have context, and you look at how young you are in those photos when they were actually photographs, how you go off and see the world. Like, we're babies.
We are.
Right?
Absolutely.
So where did you end up going after Switzerland?
I went to London. I integrated the Savoy Hotel, which was a Fairmont property, which still is a Fairmont property. And I did my management trainee there.
How old were you by then?
I was 21.
Okay.
And I did just about 18 months there, and unfortunately had to leave because they were closing for renovation. So everybody was made redundant for the renovations.
Okay.
Yeah. And after that, I then moved to Paris, to the Royal Monceau, which was supposed to rebrand into Raffles Property at the time, which under the same company as Fairmont. And I clearly knew how to pick properties, because 6 months into arriving, they said, we're also closing for renovation.
Stop.
But completely different system. You're not going to be made redundant. You're going to be on chômage, so you can sit at home if you want and wait for the hotel to reopen. But having obviously just graduated, it wasn't sort of what I was waiting to do. So I got the opportunity to go to China for the Olympics. As a support team for the Raffles property, which was hosting all of the IOC members. And I was in charge of welcoming all of the IOC members during the Olympics. So I spent a couple of weeks there.
What did that mean, like to welcome them?
I would stand in the lobby for about 20 hours a day, waiting for the first one who arrived early in the morning to the last one to greet them in English, because, again, very naively, I went to China saying 5-star hotels, everybody's going to speak English, it's going to be fabulous. And I arrived, and absolutely not. You'd have a head of department who was probably international, and with his assistant who was from China and was doing all the translation to the team, who barely spoke any English, maybe got a hello, goodbye, but there was no way of interacting with the guests, so they needed, obviously, a task force to take care of that.
Can you describe what it's like, your first visit to China? I mean, you get off the plane, what happens?
I think I was just there to take everything in. It was an amazing experience. And I actually really wanted to do it because I was, at that time, looking at moving to Asia. That was going to be the next step for me. I really wanted to work in Asia, have that experience, because I think it's a very different industry than what we have in Europe. So I wanted to experience that.
What do you mean by that?
You've got more manpower, so I think you can do a lot more in terms of guest experience than what we possibly can do in Europe. But again, I learned there that you can have more manpower, but when you've got a communication barrier, it doesn't necessarily mean better service, obviously. So it was definitely an eye-opener for me, and we were very well taken care of to be able to discover China while we were there and visit some amazing sites.
What was the greatest moment about visiting China? What do you remember?
The Great Wall of China.
Can you describe? I've not seen the Great Wall of China. Just
this, literally a great wall, and the amount of people who were walking along it, and it's just, you just see it it's never ending. And it's quite funny because I am on social media, and someone recently posted sort of like a Great Wall of China close by up in the arrière-pays near Menton, and I said to my children, oh, let's go and see this. It's compared to the Great Wall of China. So we drive an hour to get there, and it's like a 10-meter bridge.
No. Where is that?
It's just above, just above. It's a 45-minute drive above Menton. And they look at me like, what's the Great Wall of China like, Mummy? And I'm like, well, not this, I can tell you that. But it made us laugh, and it was a good sort of afternoon anyway. You
really get into your social media, because you were just telling me, before we started recording, you were telling me a little bit of a story about a video you saw of a mom who does squats every time someone says, Mom, can you share this story? This is so funny.
Yeah, it was this
because you have two kids.
I have two children. Yeah. I have a 9 and a 11-year-old, and they say mom a lot. And this mom was actually showing how often her children were saying it, and she then put a challenge in place saying every time they would say mom, she would do a squat. So I sort of wanted to give the example to my children of how frequently they ask for my help or support or just say mom, and so I'm going to do the challenge also for a week, which we did. Which they found very funny at some point because it would just be constant squatting. My legs didn't feel the same way at the end of the week.
So in the first day, how many squats did
40.
You do? So they said mom 40 times the first day, and at the end of the week?
The both day, but I think they were just having fun, 100.
Yeah. Is it difficult to manage your time when you have kids like that? Because I would imagine that in the hotel industry, or I've always had the impression that in the hotel industry, you kind of are it's not 9 to 5.
It's not 9 to 5, no, but I think that's also why we do it, part of it. It's that constant buzz, the constant surprise which can come along in our day. It's been a juggle, definitely. I think my children have probably grown up a bit faster because of it, because I've had to make them a bit more independent and getting to the activities after school or finding ways around it. And it's also a second day that starts when they go to bed, so catching up on emails and things like that. So I can be home for dinner, putting them to bed. I then take my computer home and plug back in.
Really? Mm-hmm. So do you have downtime, like on the weekends or?
When I don't have them.
Wow. That's, how do you recover how do you sleep? How much do you sleep a night?
I sleep fairly well. I sleep 7 hours. So okay. I do go to bed at a fairly, most of the time, fairly early time. And then depending when my children wake up, I wake up.
But even when I was waiting for you just outside the building here, I saw you walking down the quay with looking down at your phone, and it was sort of texting. And are you somebody that can turn off the connection, the connectivity?
No, I'm not very good at that.
Do you want to be good at it?
I'd love to be good at it. But I think I think being in this role, at least in my position, I want to ensure I'm always giving the most support to my team. So when I'm out of the hotel, I'm not there to support them if they need me, so they know I'm available. It's my son's birthday today, so if he needs me, I want to be available for him too. And yeah, I think it's a horrible habit actually today that a lot of us have, is this phone that's constantly with us, and the emails which are constantly with us, and now the social media which is added to it, which there's some good and there's some bad. But no, it's not my strength, the downtime.
What is your idea of being a good boss? Because you have been in your role now since 2018, and you won the Manager of the Year award. Do you think of somebody and try a former boss, for example, somebody in the industry or somebody that you use as a role model to kind of define how you are in this position?
I don't think I use one person. I think I've taken things from each manager or leader I've worked with to adapt it, but there's also my personality. And I do think as a female leader, our personality is very different to what a male leader would give. At least that's the feedback I get from my team. So maybe there's a more nurturing side, I don't know. But I think that there's no right or wrong management. It's what's best for you and the team at the time, and you need to adapt it as things go along. But as I said, for me, it's leading by example. It's showing them that I am there when they need the support, when the hotel needs the support. I am available for them nearly any time of the day. But it's also understanding them on a personal level, who their families are, what they do outside of work, what they need inside of why they're in the hotel. And the key element I say to them is, we're here to have fun. We spend most of our time together. Let's make it fun.
So how do you think they would describe you?
I would say hardworking, opinionated, sometimes inflexible. And apparently I can be creative, which my twin sister probably wouldn't agree with.
She wouldn't agree with.
She's the creative one.
But I've seen some of the initiatives that you've done through the hotel, and it is very creative. I mean, I think it was International World Dance Day. You had everybody do a little video, and everyone was moving, dancing. Right. Whose idea was that?
It's a team idea. We have monthly meetings where we go through the next 3 months and we brainstorm. And I say to them, we can go as crazy as we want and then bring it back down to what we can really do with our means and the people we have in the hotel. But as I said, my key element is making it fun. And we have to be present for the clients. We have to ensure it's perfect for our guests, which can create stress for people, that constant sort of pressure to ensure it's there. But we need that downtime, and that's our downtime. It's having fun in different ways. But I also think there's an element which is important today, is we're coming with a society which has a very different mindset in how they want to balance their work and their personal life and what sort of company they want to work for. And it's also a reflection of who we are as a company that we're putting out there. And it's something for me which is important. I think it's something which is important to the generation coming up, that they do want to enjoy going to work and having fun at work. We're a generation where we would do insane hours. Mm-hmm. And it was also a reflection of how to get promoted and to grow within our industry or in society. The generation coming up don't want that. They'll do their 8 hours and they'll go home.
Well, that's one of the things I'm kind of curious about is, how do you manage that? Because most people don't think about the life of the people in the service industry. You come into a hotel, you go to a restaurant, they serve you, you're the client, they're supposed to be, serving your needs. But what is it that makes the quality of work life for people?
I think there are lots of things. I think our biggest challenge today is we have two generations in companies. We have the older generation, which I consider I'm part of, which will give themselves 100% and do extra hours if they don't question the extra hours. And we've got this younger generation, which will give 100%, but during their hours at work, and then they'll literally unplug and they'll go away for a weekend or for the evening, and they won't think about it at all. And I think the generation coming up, they're looking for several elements. There are environmental aspects which are important to them. There's the workload, the quality of the work that we're asking them to do. They have to understand it has to mean something to them. And I think there's the having fun, which is something very important. But something we've also brought into it, and I think is very important, is balancing elements which happen outside of our life and educating our teams on that. So we work with several associations. We've worked with Écoute Concert and Réconfort. We've worked with the Red Box and Vivek on menstruation.
She can, he can. Mm-hmm.
She can, he can. And it was very interesting because we did it with all of our team, and it's actually the men who had the most questions. And people did come and say, Victor, why have you done this? And I'm like, well, we spend 8 hours together. We all have our issues outside of work, but we're still in a world, and our generation is still sometimes in a world where there's the non-dit. We don't talk about these subjects, and I think it's wrong. I think these are subjects we need to talk about within the company to help people get through their personal issues too, because if they're not happy at home, they're not going to be happy at work. And if our teams are not happy at work, they're not going to be good with our clients. So for
Right.
me, it's one circle that all goes together. And this is why we do it. To have a dad who understands possibly more menstruation when his daughter's going to go through it, possibly, who's coming up to it, managers who understand menopause and the impact that can have on women in their team. I think it's key to be a good manager, but also to support them on an outside level.
I noticed that you do work with a lot of associations in Monaco. For example, you did sensibilization for, I think, with Sai Amour.
Absolutely.
And even with Pink Ribbon Month, you had like a pink cocktail where €1 did go to the association. Do you actively seek out associations, or are you approached a lot in your role? Because I would imagine you have quite a high respect level here.
I think there are both, but we reach out to those that we find the balance with, where there's also, as I said, something we can bring to our teams. I believe in giving back. I think that's something important, and we do it with Pink Ribbon and our pink cocktail. We did the blue cocktail. But as I said, for me, it's bringing something to teams, which is something very important. And the one we did on mental health is something which, again, I think it's something which is key today. I recently read a report where the younger generation have more mental health issues than actually we do, most likely because of social media. But it actually came from the COVID period. And again, cultural aspects. Three Sisters in London, where companies were giving real support on mental health. And I remember, doing sort of like a video with my teams, or trying to do Zoom calls and just say, guys, how are you? I'm sort of sitting in the hotel alone. It's really depressing. Grand Prix weekend, it's supposed to be, and there's nobody here. People looked at me saying, what are you doing, Victoria? Nobody wants to talk about their mental health. And I'm like, well, does me some good. I'm going to talk about my mental health. And I think that's key elements. It's not being ashamed of saying, I'm not doing so well, or I do need support. And I think it's healthy at our levels as managers to be able to say, well, I do have downtimes. I do have moments where I have doubts, where I'm not doing so well. And I also need you guys as my team to support me through those moments, like I'll support you, because we're all human.
Do you think that as a woman, it's harder to ask for help, or it's harder to admit that you're just having one of those days?
No, I think it's easier for us to be more open about it, but I think people don't necessarily understand it still today. I think it's sort of like she's having a meltdown, or it's drama, because it's not something men do so naturally. I
think it's very hurtful that's the go-to often when a woman is just having one of those days, is that it's her hormones, or, women are dramatic. And I just think it's very unfortunate that we're still talking and labeling like that. I agree with you. I was surprised that when you were named the general manager of the Columbus in 2018, that you were the first female to be named that in Monaco in the hotel industry.
Indeed.
How is that possible in 2018? I would have thought it would be a bit more open by that point.
I wish it still were today, to be honest with you, because it's still the case today.
You're still the only one?
Yes.
I didn't realize that.
So I wish there were more opportunities, but I think, in Monaco, these are not positions which come available on a day-to-day basis. That's right. There are not many hotels like you'd have in Paris and London, and when people move, not very frequently, but you have more opportunities. But I think there is finding that balance and finding the people who will give you the opportunity. And I was lucky that my previous owners and my current owners have kept me on, so I'm very lucky, gave me that opportunity with, at the time, a 3- and a 5-year-old. and believing in me that I could balance it all together and helping me along. I remember my boss at one day saying, Victoria, go, be with your children at 4 o'clock. I'm like, well, no, I'm the manager. I'm not going to leave my team at 4 o'clock. And he says, I've got a nanny. Well, don't pay a nanny. You know, we're in 2018, you're allowed to be both. And for me, that was a real eye-opener. And it's also helped me in the management of with my teams in being very flexible when personal elements in life do come along, and saying, well, if you need to be there, because I do believe when we need them to be there, they will be there. And so far, that has proven.
How do the hotels in Monaco work, really? Like, do you work together in some way, or is it super competitive between each one?
No, I think we work together. I think we're very lucky in this destination. There's a lot of support from the Monaco Tourism Board, which obviously promotes the destination, interacts with us all on a frequent basis to understand how Monaco is doing as a destination, but to help us when we need to. For the last 2 years, we've been going to New York as a destination, and all the general managers have gone. And I think that's a real reflection of Monaco as a country and the force of Monaco. But I think the main element is also we're all very different products, and there's something for everybody in Monaco. So every hotel has something to bring, depending on what you're looking for. Which, yes, there's competition. It'd be wrong to say there's no, but I think it's healthy competition, and it's also helping the client choose what is best for them if they really want to come to Monaco. And I've seen it among other hoteliers. Well, I think that we're better for you than even saying sometimes my property, because it's not the right location. It's not what you're looking for this holiday with your family. So there is something for everybody, and I think that's where we're very strong as a destination.
So the Columbus, what is it that would you say is its strong point? What kind of client is coming to your hotel?
Mostly European and couples, I would say. I think our strong point is our location, which some people will probably differ in saying.
Because why? Why do you think people would?
It's a long way from the glitz and glam. But that's what we say to our
So
clients.
the Columbus Hotel is in Fontvieille.
It's in Fontvieille.
And it's the only hotel in Fontvieille.
It's the only hotel in Fontvieille. But as we say to
served by a bus. You can take a bus there.
You can take a bus. You can take our shuttle. You can take the Vélib of Monaco. There are many ways. You can walk. It's 30 minutes side to side of Monaco. It's reality. You go to London, 30 minutes, you've done a very small surface of London. I think it's the authentic side of Monaco. It's living like a local, and it's discovering Monaco in a very different way. And there are very, very nice areas in Fontvieille which people do appreciate when they get to know the area. What
are some of the comments that guests make that they are surprised about Monaco when they've come here, even if they are frequent guests? But what is it really that's the surprise element?
I think people realizing that it is not just for millionaires. I think people, when they do come, they realize that there can be something for everybody, but it's getting past that, and it's the image we do have as a destination because of history, because of so many elements. But yeah, I do think people are very surprised by the fact that there's things you would find in any big country or city around the world.
So you are talking about how each of the hotels in Monaco, let's say, all have their own special, unique package, right? Yep. But Monaco, when people think about Monaco, people think about luxury.
Yes.
What does the word luxury mean? Is it one word that applies to all of you in the service industry? For you, for example, what does the word luxury mean when it comes to the hotel industry?
For me today, luxury is the experience you're going to give your client. And it's understanding your client. And if you've got that, the service you will provide will be exceptional. And that is luxury. Material, I'm not going to say everybody can have something today, but people have choices. But it's all about how we make the experience, and that's luxury for me.
Can you give an example, though? I mean, what are we talking about? Because experience is a word we hear all the time. It used to be, hey, you get free shampoo at this hotel. So it's no longer just an amenity situation. It's all about the living experience. But what does it mean?
Well, for me, as I said earlier, I think it's listening to your guests and discovering things about them, and it's surprising them. We had a guest come for numerous years, and 1 year came with his daughter. Next year didn't come with his daughter. He came once a year, and And the second year, we knew he wasn't coming with his daughter, so we did a whole package with his daughter's name. And he left. He said, "I can't remember you. I can't believe you remember me and my daughter's name." And every year, whether she comes or not, there's always something for his daughter. And for him, that is luxury, because we've remembered him even if he comes once a year. But that's because we created a bond through the conversation we've had. For some people, it's going to be very, very basic things. I had a team member who was at the breakfast recently, and the client said he slept terribly because there was mosquito in the room. So mosquito, natural element of the planet, not much you can do about it. We put a mosquito plug in his room. The next morning, he was all smiles. He said, "I can't believe you did that." For him, that was luxury, because we listened to him and we found a solution where he just was ready to go and clap around his bedroom and try and kill the mosquito. So I think that there's small elements like that, and it comes to listening to your guests.
But you've been in the industry a long time. Do guests now ask more or make more demands before they're even coming to the hotel?
No, and I think that's mostly because of social media and what we can find on social media. I think there was a first step as people were booking more things by themselves, so restaurants, activities. We saw a big decline on those sort of requests we got from our clients. And now we're coming into a generation which actually books via social media. But don't ask me how. I still don't know how to do it.
Okay.
But they will go on TikTok or they will go on Instagram, and they will literally book directly through the links without questioning, and they'll take care of everything themselves. So there's a big change in the generation coming up, and what they're also looking for. I mean, how you promote today will have a huge impact versus how we used to promote our properties before. It has to be a lot more interactive. You have to see a lot more people. You have to create a story. Whereas before we were just showing photos, which we thought was the right thing. And now it has to be a storytelling. You have to wow the person through the storytelling.
And is that including like the food experience, everything from that they're doing at the hotel?
Everything.
But that's quite a high expectation to live up to.
It's very hard, and the creativity you need behind it and the teams need behind it is difficult.
For you, in all of these years, how has something like sustainability and eco-consciousness, especially for the younger generation, how has that changed your industry? And also so that you meet the demands of, planet-conscious people that are now coming to your hotel?
I think it's divided into two different group of travelers. I think you'll have business travelers or companies who will be a lot more conscious on that and will have requests on that level. Personally, on a leisure guest, I don't see it. I don't see people saying we're coming to you because you have those actions in place or because you believe in that. So I think it really depends who you're catering for.
So they're not checking certifications, for example.
I don't see it. I don't see a growth. I mean, we had a certificate, we don't anymore, and it's a constant question. My team's saying, why don't we? And because I don't think that there's a real reason to it. We do the actions in our hotel that we believe are right, which we believe can have an impact, and which we can manage on a human aspect. It's absolutely pointless saying we're going to do it and then we can't follow through because the manpower can't follow through. It doesn't make sense on an operational basis. So that's our thought process. If we can do it, if it makes sense, we will do it. But to do it, we don't believe in that.
Does Monaco rank up there with other high luxury destinations? Like even in some of the places like Paris. Paris is like a city of light. It's romantic. Do each of these sort of magical destinations, Dubai, London, do they all compete with each other, or do they just offer something that's so different that it really just depends on what the person's looking for?
I think there is competition between some destinations. I wouldn't say there's, for example, between us and Paris. I'd probably say maybe a bit more between us, Saint-Tropez, maybe Dubai. But there are destinations where people will possibly go for a week, whereas people come here for 2-3 days, not much more, and you've done it all. So I think that's also a difference in the destinations, is how long if you go to Paris, you can go for a staycation or a long weekend, but people who do come from a long way will probably stay a bit longer or visit around.
So that would be different than when you worked at the Hotel Negresco. I mean, the Hotel Negresco is a hugely famous hotel on this planet, on the Promenade des Anglais in Nice. You worked there for a few years.
I did.
And was the clientele really different? I mean, it's like a living art museum.
It's definitely a living art museum. It was purely leisure in that property. And
people stayed longer?
No.
Oh.
Again, Nice at the time wasn't a destination people would stay more than 2-3 days. You'd have the odd families in the summer who would come back every summer and do their week there. But on an annual basis, no, it wasn't a much longer length of stay than what we have here.
The history of that hotel is quite fascinating. And the reason that Madame Augier ended up running the place, what was she like to work for? I mean, she was an iconic hotel owner. She lived on the top floor, right, up in the little dome, and she had like how many dogs?
6th floor.
Pets everywhere. Animals were very welcome at that was one of the great things about the hotel.
Cat.
Yeah,
the cat, which was in the bar all the time. Everybody knew the cat. She was an iconic woman in the hospitality world. There's no doubt about it. I knew her close to the end of her life, where she was unfortunately in a wheelchair, but she. I wouldn't say she created fear, but there was definitely respect towards her from all of the teams. When she would go by, we were close to the garde à vous from everybody and make sure everything was perfect. But she was fairly discreet in the hotel at that time.
Was she discreet with you? What happened with you?
Well, maybe I wasn't discreet. She was discreet, but yes, there was a day where I was walking behind her in the main area, and I thought I was walking normally, but she sort of stopped with her wheelchair and sort of said, "Who's the elephant walking behind me?" And I sort of looked around me, saying, "I'm the only one." So I walked up to her, saying, "I'm very sorry, that would be me." She says, "You need to learn how to walk more quietly." I'm like, "I will take that on board."
So you go from something like that, which is really an independent hotel, to now being at a hotel that's part of the Hilton Group. What does something like Hilton add in terms of value to your property? Because it's a curio collection.
It's a curio collection, absolutely. We've been we rebranded a year ago now. Obviously, the visibility. We're only 85 in the hotel, so to exist as an independent property around the world is difficult. But even within Monaco, where you do have several properties which are either with big groups or the SPM being its own group, which has a lot more power than we did, it helps us get that visibility of the property around the world. And today, more people coming to the property.
But what does that mean for your job? Are you responsible to different people, or is it just they come and help with marketing?
They are. We get promoted through Hilton today, but we're a franchise property, so there is not much change in our day to day, apart from a few standards which do come along with the Curio brand. But it's still a very lifestyle brand where we keep a lot of our own way of functioning, and we still get to do our crazy videos of dancing in the lobby.
So for you, going away and living in other countries, why did you come back to Monaco?
My personal life brought me back. I got married in Monaco.
Do tell. There's nobody listening. Go ahead.
I got married. My ex-husband is from Monaco, and now I have 2 children here, so I'm here.
But when you left, did you think you would come back?
No, I didn't think I would come back. As I said, it was a bubble which I didn't love when I was 18. And I did say to my parents, "Thank you very much for everything you've given me. I appreciate it, but I don't think..."
Give me my boat and let me sail away for the rest of my life.
Yeah, no, that didn't happen. But I did say, I don't think it's the destination for me where I want to be. And I do love London. I do love Paris. I love the constant change of those places. But today, where I'm in my life, I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled life brought me back here.
What do you enjoy about Monaco? Like, where would you go to just have some quiet and a coffee?
The beach. Sit on the beach with a cup of coffee.
At Lavato?
Lavato, Marquet. Can't say.
Do you swim?
I used to swim. I used to swim for Monaco, actually.
What?
Yes.
Tell me.
For 10 years, maybe, with my sisters. We all swam for Monaco as a club.
What does that mean, you swam for Monaco? So
we represented Monaco international competitions.
All of you?
All 4 of us. All different strokes. But all of us.
I have so many questions. Are you 4 competitive girls at that time? competitive with each other?
Yes.
And you all enjoyed swimming?
We did, surprisingly. And we were never forced into it. Our mum, because our dad traveled, our mum obviously took care of us here, put us in many sports. I can't think of a sport I haven't done or one of us hasn't done. I remember sailing, athletics, tennis, dance. We all came back to swimming at some point, and all chose different strokes, which was a bit of a miracle.
Where did you train then?
The Stade Louis II.
What was your stroke?
Backstroke.
So you actually went and competed internationally?
Yes.
Did you ever have an Olympic dream?
No, that one never came.
But that's maybe where you get some of your discipline too, because it's at a young age.
No doubt about it. Managing the homework and swimming. I mean, we were swimming on 6 days a week. So evenings after school, Saturday morning, and eventually when I was getting to older, so around 15, 16, we were swimming twice in the morning, either before school or we were pulled out of gym to be able to go and swim. So it was sometimes 8, 9 times a week.
Did you not miss that then when you kind of stopped?
No.
Or did you replace it with something else?
No, I think it was at some point just fed up of maybe not being a teenager at some point, because it's competitions on a weekly basis. It's training constantly. So when people are saying, you want to hang around after school? No, I have to be in the swimming pool in half an hour. So, but it definitely gave us all discipline, because we'd go away with our homework, or the homework had to be done before, or we would find different times to do it.
Your mom must have had an enormous amount of patience.
I don't know how she did it, in all honesty. I have 2, and I struggle with 2, so I don't know how she managed with 4.
Do you find that as you're getting older and in your role as a mom, that you now start to think about things that your mom and dad did for you and wonder how they managed, or maybe you didn't quite appreciate it at the time?
Definitely. Absolutely. Whether it's with the children, traveling, being able to travel with 4 children. I sometimes, when I look at traveling with my children, I sort of say, okay, that's not going to happen. The education, the battles with the education, and which we obviously forget when we're teenagers or children, of what we went through, or some elements of it. Or we say, oh, wasn't that difficult? When I speak to my mum, she says, yeah, you were that difficult. But you just get on with it. And I think that's something we all 4 have, is you just get up and go. You don't sit and dwell on it. You don't have time.
And what about your kids? Do they do sports or swimming?
My son plays water polo, so
There's a great water polo community here.
Very good water polo community. And my daughter does gymnastics. Neither of them wanted to swim like we swam.
Have you reconnected with the people you grew up with then?
No.
Okay.
When I left at 18, I sort of pulled a line on Monaco in my head, and I do see people here and there and here in Monaco, and sort of say, hey, how are you? And I know who they are, they know who I am. But no, I haven't reconnected with my...
But I think it's different for our generation, because when we left our home countries or when we went off to university, there wasn't like Facebook.
No.
You weren't keeping an eye on everybody, and you weren't connected in that same way. It was easier to go off and be somebody different.
Absolutely.
Which I would not want to grow up with everything I've ever done recorded, or somebody with a video, or... But
that's also a personal choice on how we educate our children and what we're giving them. My children don't have social media. They're not going to have it for a very, very long time, and I will ensure that they're not posting themselves or their life. It's their business and their family's business, but it's not the world's business.
But how do you bring up kids here and keep them grounded? Because there's a lot to say of competition, and as you were saying earlier, the kids that get a boat or a car. How do you bring up your kids with your values?
I think it's just constantly talking to them, being transparent of what life is. And my children see the work their dad and I put in on a daily basis, and they know when we travel that they're lucky to be able to travel, that it's not something that's given to everybody. I think it's communicating with them. It's telling them that this is not given to everybody. It's a luxury for them and for us to be able to do it. It's explaining when they do get teased about their shoes or their clothes or elements like that, saying, I don't have the latest brand of... And I'm like, and so what? You're going to go out of them in 3 months' time, or they're going to put a hole in them. Why would you want the best now? Save to have the best when you're older if you want to, when you've stopped growing, if you really need it. Do you really need it? Is it going to change something in your day?
Out of curiosity then, because you must travel quite a bit for you mentioned how you go to New York, for example, with the tourist office, and I'm sure you've traveled in a capacity in your role quite a bit. What do other countries, what do other people that you meet, what is their impression of Monaco then?
I think most people still think it's a destination for the rich and famous. And people still do say it to us, oh, well, we can't afford that, or that's not for our clients, they can't afford to stay there. And I said, I think that's the luxury of Monaco. There is something affordable for the majority. I can't say affordable for everybody, but you go from our properties, Novotel, all the way to the Hôtel de Paris, where you're on two different scales of prices, and people in the low season who do want to please themselves and discover Monaco can do it at an affordable price in Monaco.
What about the community of women here? Do you think that we get a certain international image? Because I think that it's maybe not clear that I think there's two types of women that are here. Do you think that the outside world sees what's going on here?
Not at all. Not at all.
So how would you describe the community of women here?
I think it's a very strong community. I think I'm surprised constantly by people I meet and what women are able to do and manage to do with children, the family, the work. Yeah. It's honestly, I find it mind-blowing. But I think the difference is that we don't necessarily do it to be seen. We do it because it has a meaningful aspect to us. It will bring something to us or to our family or to our children that we want to educate them. At least that's how I see it. But Monaco is a small place in the world, so before it gets seen at that level, it will take a bit more time, I think.
Well, it's nice to know that we do exist, though, that there is more to lunch and life here. So what's going to happen with you? What's your future? Are you going to stay in Monaco? Is it the life that you've always dreamed of?
I think until my children reach an age where they don't need me as much, I will be here. But I do work in an industry which has opportunities around the world. And I still want to get to know parts of the world and different ways of managing different cultures, a different way of seeing things. And there's only one way of doing that, and that's going to discover elsewhere. We can do it while we're traveling, but we don't see the managerial side of that. We see that as a holiday. And I enjoy learning constantly on a day-to-day basis. So I think at some point life will take me away from here. And I'm sure it will bring me back also at some point because, as I said, it's become home for my family and I.
Other than Canada, where you would like to live, is there anywhere that a dream destination you'd like to visit right now that you've never been?
Vietnam and Cambodia.
Oh, you haven't been there?
No.
That surprises me. I don't know why. You strike me that would have already been down on your list.
No, that's on my bucket list. I'm hoping for 25 or 26. All
right. Well, you do get vacation time then, is what you're saying.
I do. I try to. Again, not very good at it. Or it's finding the balance of doing it with my children. And I've actually learned 2 years ago, it's very good to travel alone. And I went to Costa Rica 2 years ago by myself. And that was a fresh of breath air. Was
that your first big trip by yourself?
Yeah.
It's different, right?
It's different. It's scary, if I'm honest with you. I never thought I'd travel alone, but it did me the world of good.
Why?
Because it was my rhythm. Nobody else. I could be selfish. What I want to do was for me. And I wasn't thinking about anybody else. And my job is to think about other people all the time. So it comes naturally to me to think about others.
Well, that's a perfect way to wrap it up. Think about yourself sometimes. When you go on your next vacation, give me your phone.
I will.
And we'll make sure that you don't connect the whole time. But Victoria, thank you so much for coming on Monaco Info Podcast in English. I really appreciate you taking the time. Fascinating to learn a little bit about the hotel industry in Monaco. And again, well done for being the first female general manager in the industry here.
Thank you. And thank you very much for having me. It's been very insightful.